So I had to come and do a follow up on the new trophy wife story. I want to give some updates as well as respond to some of the feedback on my last video. And just a trigger warning, I will be talking about SA in this video. So if you're sensitive to that kind of subject matter, you might want to click off now. But for those who didn't see my last video, the new trophy wife, or ISIS, is a hypergamy level up guru who recently went viral for exposing her husband for SAing their two daughters as well as herself. And since going viral, her husband has been revealed, and now a woman who is claiming to be his niece has made several videos on TikTok claiming that ISIS is lying. And she said it was really ISIS's oldest son that has been touching her daughters as well as her other children. And she also said that ISIS has a C abuse charge herself. In other words, she was basically saying that ISIS is harming her children. So after this happened, ISIS went live to defend her son. She claims that she has never seen this woman claiming to be her husband's niece in her life. She also showed a document with the court case number to prove that she was not lying. So I did look up the case number that ISIS showed in the video. And, before looking like everyone else, I just assumed that ISIS pressed charges on her husband. But come to find out, no charges were filed. He never got arrested and the case was closed because they could not prove that he did what she accused him of. And that is what the niece kept reiterating, that he would be in jail if there was proof that he did in fact do that to his children. And I see people running with the no proof narrative, but that still doesn't mean he didn't do it. Of course, we know that women can and do lie on men about this kind of stuff, but there are also a lot of SA cases that happen where there's no solid proof. And it's so interesting because any other time, the white man system can't be trusted, but in this case, we can't question that system and we have to go along with what they say. And you better believe that if this man was white, there would be zero debate. Black people would still believe that he did it. So it's not lost on me that the only reason most of y'all are questioning ISIS's story is because her man is black and y'all don't want to condemn a black man. It has very little to do with not having proof, because there's also no proof that the woman claiming to be the niece of ISIS's husband is actually his niece. But y'all automatically believe her because she said she was. And for all we know, the husband could be feeding her this information to tell to the public. And we know how quick black women are to cape for degenerate black men, especially when it's their black male family members. So I am sorry, I am not going to believe her just because she's a black woman. At this point, we really don't know who's telling the truth. But one thing that is consistent with both stories is that those little girls are or were being touched. And I noticed that the niece said that ISIS's little girl, she first said her brother touched her, and she kind of just left it there. So what I took from that wording, her saying that the daughter first accused the brother, is that the daughter likely named both her father and the brother when asked who was touching her. So I am inclined to believe that it could have been both of them doing it. And she mentioned that the son had a bunch of behavioral issues. She said at one point he was spreading his feces on the wall. And if that is true, then the husband could have been essaying all of those children, including the boys. Who knows? And I know somebody's going to say, oh, well, how do you know ISIS isn't doing the essaying? And we don't know. She could be. But we see who originally reported it. And if the husband was as furious as the niece said he was about those little girls being touched, why didn't he file SA charges? And also, if he's innocent, why hasn't he tried to sue ISIS for defamation and slander? It seems like if he was trying to defend himself and clear his name, his niece would have mentioned that. And I looked up all of the cases that both ISIS and her husband had, and I found some DV cases that were dismissed, but I didn't find any C abuse charges against ISIS like the niece claimed. And I'm not saying she doesn't have one, but I just couldn't find it. But based on the DV cases, it looks to me that this was just a toxic, abusive relationship. So what I'm not going to do is paint this man as some innocent victim that's just being lied on by his preference gold digger because she didn't get enough money in the relationship. Because that's the narrative that people are running with now. And I feel like the only reason a lot of people are running with that is because he's black. Because again, if he were white, he would not be given the benefit of the doubt. And ladies, when you are listening to some of the people report on this, keep in mind that a lot of these people are compromised. Obviously, the black men are going to defend other black men, right? And you also have black women who are compromised because they're with black men, or because they may have some decent black men in their family and they're subconsciously protecting the black man because of that. A lot of them subconsciously see the black men that they love in ISIS's husband. So if they can give him an out, that's what they're going to do. So it's important that we understand that while listening to some of the black community feedback on this story. These people are extremely biased, and we all are to some extent. But the way I see people trying to victimize this man, it shows that their bias when it comes to this is just on another level. And in my opinion, they just can't be taken seriously. And I also see that some black women are torn because on one hand, they want to protect ISIS because she's, the light-skinned mixed woman that they live vicariously through. But they also want to protect the black man too. So even though they started out empathizing with her, they're calling her out now. And so it's really interesting to see the gymnastics people are doing. But as of right now, it appears that the main victims in this story are those two little girls. And I am not about to infantilize this grown-ass man who intentionally sought out a woman who was 20 years his junior to trick on, even if she isn't being 100% honest. He should have chose better. Isn't that what they tell us? He should have chose better, and this is not my fight. What irritates me the most about this story is the fact that two children are being traumatized by this, and also the impact that it's having on the sector that I'm a part of online. That is one of the main reasons I feel compelled to speak on this. And by the way, when I said in the last video that ISIS owed it to her audience to tell the truth, I was not talking about her sharing all of the explicit details about what happened to her children online. I was specifically talking about her being honest about her marriage ending, because that is what her platform was built on. She could have easily made a video saying that she was getting a divorce without mentioning what happened to her children. And she could have just admitted to not being truthful about the state of her marriage while she was giving advice to other women. So that is what I was talking about. She could have held herself accountable without mentioning her kids at all. And I did see where ISIS posted on her community tab saying that she did a background check on her husband. She also said that she knew him 6 months before marrying him. And she said that he showed no signs of being a PEDO. So I did want to mention that. I still think the DV and the fact that he R-worded her during her marriage should have been enough for her to leave. But that is just me. I know it's not easy for some women to leave. But my point in saying that in the last video is to reiterate that the signs are usually there, ladies. They just are. And we as women have to stop ignoring them. And I also call cap when she said that she didn't marry this man for money, because her entire platform was based on being a hypergamous trophy wife. So while she may have also married him because she thought they shared the same values, I also believe that his money was the primary reason she married him. And she also mentioned that what happened to her could happen to anyone, and I do agree with that part. Ladies, again, it is poor men out here touching little girls, and arguably they're touching little girls the most. And we hardly ever see it go viral like this, but the minute a rich man does it, or, a well-off man does it, it spreads like wildfire, and suddenly it's all rich men, and we should all be scared to practice hypergamy. And it's all this fear-mongering about hypergamy. That has to stop, in my opinion. We can talk about how women should have their own money. We can talk about how women may be more likely to tolerate abuse from men with money, and how men with money abuse their power. I am definitely open to those conversations. I always talk about that on my channel. But let's not act like many women aren't tolerating abuse from Dusties, because they are. And a lot of them are. And in ISIS's community post, I also picked up on a little bit of Shira Shade towards the end of the paragraph, because a lot of people have been blaming Shira for this, because ISIS did say that she was a student of Shira's. So Shira responded indirectly, and she called ISIS a dumb pygmisha. And she told her and other desperate women not to claim her. And I noticed that Shira's following is doing damage control for her. They've been putting clips up on TikTok of Shira advising women not to do what ISIS did, things that she advised women not to do before this whole situation happened. And like I said, I don't think Shira should be blamed for this situation, nor should hypergamy be blamed. As many of you pointed out in my comment section, when Kevin Samuels was alive, he actually told a woman not to believe their child if they claim to be abused by the husband because children lie. I did a whole live stream on it, so definitely make sure you check that out when you have time. But Isis said she learned from Kevin Samuels as well. So if Shira and the hypergamy sector are to blame, so is Kevin Samuels and the manosphere. But I don't see a lot of videos blaming them. And some of you thought I was blaming Shira in the last video, or you thought I was blaming the hypergamy sector or hypergamy itself for what happened to Isis and her children. But I was just warning y'all about how these hypergamy and femininity sound bites get misconstrued often. And this is why I left TikTok and why I barely do shorts now. Y'all know that is one of my main reasons for hating shorts. The nuance is not there. It's not possible in a 30-second clip. That super short content, it's cute, it's fun, but it's way too easy for people to misconstrue and misunderstand and also misuse to intentionally confuse women, especially if they're already looking to discredit us or sabotage our level up. And look, I can say this over and over again, and y'all still gonna do what you want to do at the end of the day. But because I have been an advocate of hypergamy and femininity for Black women specifically, I do feel it's my responsibility to come on here if I see the content is being bastardized or watered down or headed in a bad direction, or if I think it can be executed more strategically. That is just what I'm going to do. Now, it's not our fault if someone only takes part of our message and applies it incorrectly, but we also have a responsibility to control how people use our content the best that we can. If you notice, I don't allow people to chop up my content and spread it around. I will quickly flag people down if they do that shit. Why? Because I know it's easier to take my shit out of context. Now, doing that may stop me from going viral, but I would rather my message be comprehended properly by a smaller amount of people rather than taken out of context by millions of people. And I did see a couple of slick content creators still try to do that after my last video, trying to reach and blame my content for this, which I knew they would, which is why I did the last video. But look, if you're going to accuse me of changing my hypergamy talking points, even though they've always been the same, you're going to have to bring the receipts to prove otherwise. Because I heard somebody say that I'm teaching Black women to only date millionaires, when I have always said that you can be hypergamous with men who aren't rich. I've also stated that if you can't be hypergamous, at the very least, date your equal financially. Just don't date and marry down. I've always said vet a man's character. Money isn't all that matters. I've put out warnings about the high earning men that you should not date. And see, what some of y'all are trying to do is exactly what you did to Shira, and you're accusing me of saying shit I never said. But because I'm not mixed and light-skinned, you won't go pull the receipts for me. You won't correct the people lying on me. I got to defend myself. And that's exactly why I released my last video, and I'm glad it's getting a decent amount of views, because y'all not gonna lie on me. Y'all try to insert me in shit I have nothing to do with. And I find it very interesting that BWE is being implicated in this by people who were a part of BWE. And people who were using some of my talking points not too long ago. And see, what I've come to realize is that some of these people are just bandwagoners. They like the idea of BWE when it was popular to discuss colorism and other Black women-centric topics like Black femicide. They hopped on the bandwagon, and it was cool when they were getting the views and getting the clout. But as soon as the movement fell apart and lost steam, then you want to act like you weren't on the exact same shit. Stop playing. And I don't want to hear shit about my platform when y'all support content creators on here who are whole felons and who are on record verbally abusing Black women online. These people are in no position to talk shit about anybody, not with the history they have. And then I heard through the grapevine that some of the older BWE are popping back up trying to use this story to talk about how I was also, quote unquote, leading Black women astray like Shira did, when those very women are responsible for the BWE extremists that exist today. And one of them even did a project with Shira. And now that she's being blamed for this, I guess they're trying to disassociate themselves from her. Y'all are just so ridiculous to me, and I'm tired of people sitting on their high horse, pretending that they were just 100% right about everything and were never irresponsible with their content, because they absolutely were. And look, I am not saying I have never made mistakes on this platform, because I have. But you've also heard me come back and correct myself and apologize. I don't just act like it never happened and pretend that I never changed like some of these other women do. But all in all, y'all need to cut the bullshit and stop blaming women for the actions of men. And to the other content creators trying to throw me under the bus, I know why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're in competition with me and you want me to be discredited like Shira and a lot of these other content creators. You can try to slander me. You can try to put all this dirt on my name, but it's not going to work like that because of the way I deliver my message. And if you're going to point fingers at me, you're going to have to point them right back at yourself. So ladies, in the comments, let me know if you believe ISIS, her husband's niece, or if you think both of them are lying. Also, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.